The lights in the Great Hall burned with colors that human eyes could barely understand. Ambassador Kang Tae-hyun stood at the center of the room, surrounded by thousands of alien beings. Some had wings. Some had scales. Some were made of what looked like living crystal. All of them were staring at him with cold eyes. This was Nexus Prime, the heart of the Galactic Coalition. Every important species in the galaxy had representatives here. Every species except humans. They had been banned from joining over 50 years ago. The council said humans were too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable to be trusted with the rest of civilized space. Tae-hyun had spent the last 20 years trying to change their minds. Today was supposed to be his final chance. He could feel the weight of billions of people back on Earth, all hoping he could convince these aliens that humanity deserved a seat at the table. The room was massive, bigger than any stadium on Earth. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into shadows. Holographic displays floated everywhere, showing star maps and data streams. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. Different sections of the hall had different gravity and atmosphere for different species. It was impressive and terrifying at the same time. High Counselor Vrek stood on the central platform. He was tall and thin, with skin that changed colors when he moved. His species, the Talvari, had been part of the coalition for thousands of years. They considered themselves the most civilized race in the galaxy. The human requests permission to speak, Vrek said, his voice echoing through the chamber. The way he said the word human made it sound like an insult. Though I cannot imagine what he thinks will change our minds after all this time. Laughter rippled through the assembly. Not friendly laughter. The kind that made Tae-hyun's stomach tighten. Commander Zilth rose from his seat. He represented the Chithar Collective, an insect-like species that thought and moved as one giant hive mind. His voice buzzed and clicked in a way that made Tae-hyun's teeth hurt. Why do we waste time on this? Zilth demanded. Humans are primitives. Barely 200 years in space, and already they have fought more wars than most species fight in a millennium. They are aggressive. They are chaotic. They do not belong here. More voices joined in. General Tharn of the Draven Empire stood up. His scarred face twisted in contempt. The Draven were warriors themselves, but even they looked down on humans. I have studied human military history, Tharn growled. They fight each other constantly. World wars, civil wars. They create weapons designed only to kill their own kind. How can we trust such creatures to act peacefully among us? The holographic displays lit up with images from Earth's history. World War II, nuclear weapons, terrorist attacks. Every dark moment from humanity's past played out for everyone to see. Tae-hyun had seen these images presented dozens of times before. They never got easier to watch. He wanted to defend his people. He wanted to explain that humans had also done beautiful things. That they had art and music and literature. That they had learned from their mistakes. That they had spent the last century working toward peace. But he knew it would not matter. These aliens had already made up their minds. Ambassador Kira of the Luminar spoke next. Her species was known for being peaceful and wise. Tae-hyun had hoped she might support him, but her face showed only concern. I mean no disrespect, Kira said softly. But the evidence is clear. Humans have potential, yes, but they are not ready. Perhaps in another few hundred years, when they have matured as a species. A few hundred years, that might as well be forever. By then, Earth would be even further behind the rest of the galaxy. The ban would become permanent through simple neglect. Rex turned his attention back to Tae-hyun. The High Counselor's eyes were cold and distant. Human Ambassador, Rex said, you have come before this council 23 times in as many years. Each time you have asked us to reconsider the ban on your species. Each time we have shown you the same courtesy and listened to your arguments. And each time we have reached the same conclusion. Your people are not ready for membership in the coalition. Do you have anything new to present, or shall we end this meeting now? The hall fell silent. Every eye in the room was on Tae-hyun. This was it. His last chance. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Honorable counselors, he began, keeping his voice steady. You are right that I have stood before you many times, and you are right that I have failed to change your minds. But today, I am not going to make arguments. I am not going to present statistics or treaties or promises about what humanity might become. He activated his datapad. A holographic projector rose from the floor in front of him. Instead, Taehyun continued. I am going to show you what we already are. 18 cycles ago, there was an incident at the Kepler 442b system. A civilian research station called Sanctuary was attacked by raiders. Coalition forces were too far away to respond in time. 12,000 people were on that station. Most of them were not human. Some of the delegates shifted uncomfortably. A few seemed to recognize the incident. Kira's expression changed, becoming more alert. A single human ship was nearby, Taehyun said. The Earth Defense Force vessel Indomitable, conducting a scientific survey. They were not a warship. They had a crew of only 200. When they received the distress signal, they had a choice to make. He looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. You all believe humans are violent and selfish, he said quietly. You believe we only think about ourselves. You believe we cannot be trusted. So I ask you to watch this footage and tell me what you see. Tell me if these humans acted like the monsters you think we are. Rex waved a hand dismissively. Very well. If you wish to waste our time with another propaganda piece, we will humor you. But this will not change anything, Taehyun nodded. He had expected nothing less. With a gesture, he activated the footage. The lights in the hall dimmed. The holographic projection expanded, filling the space above the assembly with images. Static crackled across the display, then resolved into a view of space. A space station hung against the backdrop of a gas giant. Even from a distance, it was clear something was wrong. Sections of the station were dark. Debris floated around it. Small explosions flickered across its surface. The timestamp in the corner read 18 cycles ago. The location coordinates matched Kepler 442b. Watch, Taehyun said softly. Watch what happens when humans face an impossible choice. The assembly fell silent. All eyes turned to the holographic display. Whatever they expected to see, Taehyun knew it was about to change everything. The holographic image sharpened. Inside the space station, alarms screamed. Red emergency lights flashed across white corridors. People ran in every direction, their faces twisted with fear. Most of them were not human. Taehyun recognized at least a dozen different species. Luminar families with their glowing skin, Chithar workers moving in coordinated groups, even a few Talvari scientists, their color-changing skin flashing panic signals. In the assembly hall, some of the delegates leaned forward. A few whispered to each other. They recognized their own people in the footage. The camera view switched to external. Warships surrounded the station. They were ugly, brutal-looking things with weapons bolted to every surface. Pirates. Taehyun knew the assembly would recognize them too. These were Void Marauders, one of the most feared raider groups in the galaxy. There were over 50 of them. They fired on the station without mercy, tearing through the shields and ripping holes in the hull. The station was a research facility, not a fortress. It had no real weapons, no way to fight back. A voice crackled through the audio, distorted by interference. It was the station commander, desperately calling for help. Any coalition vessel, this is Sanctuary Station. We are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. 12,000 civilians aboard. Request immediate assistance. Coalition defense forces are 6 hours out. We do not have 6 hours. The audio cut to static, then came back. Another voice, calmer but tight with tension. Sanctuary, this is Earth Defense Force vessel Indomitable. We are 3 minutes from your position. Hold on. A human voice, female, young. The camera angle shifted again. A ship appeared, moving fast through space. It was smaller than the raider vessels, sleek and efficient looking. The name painted on its hull read Indomitable in both English and several alien languages. Inside the assembly hall, Commander Zilth made a clicking sound of disapproval. A survey vessel, he buzzed. 200 crew at most. What did they think they could accomplish? Several other delegates nodded in agreement. Some looked amused. They clearly expected to watch the human ship flee, but the Indomitable did not flee. The footage cut to the ship's bridge. Captain Lee Ji-won sat in the command chair, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. She was young for a ship captain, maybe in her early 30s. Her uniform was crisp and her expression was calm, but her hands gripped the armrest tightly. Around her, the bridge crew worked at their stations. They looked scared. They had every right to be scared. Captain, one of the officers said, his voice shaking slightly. Tactical analysis complete. 52 enemy vessels. They outgun us 50-1. We cannot win this fight, Ji-won nodded slowly. I know. How long until coalition forces arrive? 5 hours and 43 minutes, Captain. And how long does the station have? The officer checked his console. At current rate of damage, main life support will fail in 30 minutes. The station will be completely destroyed in under an hour. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone knew what those numbers meant. The coalition forces would arrive to find wreckage and bodies. Nothing more. In the assembly hall, General Tharn grunted. Now we will see the truth. The humans will run. Self-preservation is natural. Even we would withdraw against such odds. But Jiwan did not order a retreat. She took a deep breath and spoke clearly. All hands, this is the captain. There are 12,000 civilians on that station. Most of them are not human. Many of them are from species that have declared humans unworthy of joining their coalition. They would not help us if our positions were reversed. She paused. The bridge crew watched her, waiting. But that does not matter, Jiwan continued. They are people. They are in danger. We have the power to help. So we will help. That is what it means to be human. She turned to her tactical officer. Plot intercept course. All power to forward shields. Position us between the raiders and the station. Captain, the officer said quietly. That will make us the primary target. We will not survive. I know, Jiwan said. Do it anyway. The assembly hall was completely silent now. Not a single delegate spoke. They watched as the Indomitable accelerated toward the battle, directly into the path of 52 enemy warships. The human ship opened fire first, targeting the raiders closest to the station. Their weapons were not particularly powerful, but they were accurate. 2 raider ships broke off their attack on the station to deal with this new threat. Then 10 more turned toward the Indomitable. Then 20. The human ship became the focus of the entire raider fleet, which was exactly what Jiwan wanted. On the bridge, alarms screamed as enemy fire hammered into their shields. The ship shook violently. Consoles sparked and crew members were thrown from their seats. Forward shields at 40%, someone shouted over the chaos. 30%. 20%. Jiwan gripped her chair. Hold position. The station needs time to evacuate. The camera view split, showing both the Indomitable's bridge and the station. On the station, evacuation shuttles were launching. They scattered in every direction, carrying hundreds of civilians to safety. The raiders could have pursued them, destroyed them easily, but they were too focused on the human ship that dared to challenge them. Ambassador Kira stood up in her seat, her eyes wide. My daughter, she whispered. My daughter was on that station. Other delegates were rising too. Some looked shocked. Some looked confused. None of them looked contemptuous anymore. On the screen, the Indomitable's shields failed. Enemy fire tore directly into the hull. Explosions ripped through multiple decks. The ship listed to one side, venting atmosphere. Shields down, the tactical officer reported, blood running down his face. Hull breaches on decks 3, 5, and 7. Life support failing in sections A through D. Jiwan's face was pale but determined. Engineering, how long can we hold? A new voice came through, hoarse and strained. Maybe 15 minutes, Captain. Maybe less. And the evacuation? 40% complete. Jiwan closed her eyes for just a moment. Then she opened them and spoke clearly. Then we hold for 15 minutes. All remaining power to weapons. Make every shot count. We will buy them time. The Indomitable kept fighting. Burning, breaking apart, venting air and bodies into space, but still fighting. The raiders pounded them without mercy. But the evacuation shuttles kept launching. Kept escaping. Kept carrying thousands of lives to safety. In the assembly hall, not a single delegate moved. They watched in absolute silence as 200 humans chose to die so that 12,000 aliens might live. The footage continued. The Indomitable was dying, but it was not dead yet. The camera view switched to show the interior of the ship. Fires burned in the corridors. Crew members rushed past carrying the wounded. The medical bay was completely full with injured people lying in the hallways. Dr. Yoon Hana worked over a patient, her hands moving quickly and precisely. She was in her 40s, her face lined with years of experience. Blood covered her uniform. Around her, the medical staff did their best with limited supplies and overwhelming casualties. A young medic approached her, his voice shaking. Doctor, the captain has ordered all non-essential personnel to the escape pods. We should evacuate now while we still can. Hana did not look up from her patient. These people cannot be moved. Their injuries are too severe. Then we will have to leave them, the medic said quietly. I am sorry, doctor, but we have no choice. Hannah finally raised her eyes. They were hard and determined. There is always a choice. I choose to stay with my patients. You can evacuate if you want. I will not stop you. The medic stared at her for a long moment. Then he set down his medical kit and picked up another instrument. Then I guess I am staying too, doctor. One by one, the other medical staff made the same choice. They stayed. In the assembly hall, Taehyun heard someone sobbing quietly. He glanced over and saw Ambassador Kira with tears streaming down her face. The footage shifted again. This time it showed Lieutenant Park Minho and his Marine squad. They were on the station itself, not the ship. They had boarded one of the damaged sections where raiders were trying to force entry. Minho was young, barely in his late 20s, but he moved with the confidence of a veteran. His squad took up defensive positions in a wide corridor. Behind them, hundreds of civilians fled toward the evacuation shuttles. Contact, one of the Marines shouted. Raiders breaching through the north airlock. The raiders poured through like a flood. There were at least 100 of them, maybe more. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons designed to tear through ship hulls. Against them, Minho's squad had 12 people. The numbers did not matter. The Marines opened fire. The battle was short and brutal. The Marines had better training and better positions, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. One by one, they fell. A sniper took a hit and collapsed. A demolitions expert went down covering a civilian family. The medic died protecting a wounded Chithar child. Minho kept fighting even as his squad fell around him. His ammunition counter showed 0. He dropped his rifle and drew his sidearm. Still the raiders came. Finally, only 3 Marines remained. They formed a line with their bodies blocking the corridor. Behind them, the last group of civilians scrambled onto a shuttle. Minho's voice came through the audio, calm despite everything. Shuttle 47, you are clear for departure. Get those people to safety. The shuttle pilot responded, his voice thick with emotion. Lieutenant, you need to fall back. We can wait. Negative, Minho said. If we fall back, the raiders will shoot down your shuttle. Launch now. That is an order. But sir, launch, Minho repeated. Then softer. It has been an honor serving with you all. Now go, go, the shuttle departed. Through the corridor windows, they could see it accelerate away from the station, carrying the last of the civilians to safety. The 3 remaining Marines stood together. They had no ammunition left, no way to fight, but they stood anyway, forming a wall with their own bodies. The raiders overwhelmed them seconds later. In the assembly hall, General Tharn rose to his feet. His scarred face was twisted with something that might have been pain or respect or both. He said nothing, but his hand moved to his chest in what Taehyun recognized as a Draven military salute. A salute given only to fallen warriors who died with honor. The footage cut back to the Indomitable's bridge one final time. The ship was barely holding together. Most of the consoles were dark or sparking. The crew was reduced to a handful of people. Captain Jiwon sat in her chair, her face pale but composed. A communication came through. It was Earth Command, finally in range. Indomitable, this is Earth Command. We have received your situation reports. You are ordered to withdraw immediately. Repeat, withdraw immediately. Preserve your ship and crew. That is a direct order from Admiral Park. Ji-won looked at her tactical display. The evacuation counter showed 89% complete. Almost there. Just a little longer. She activated the communication channel. Earth Command, this is Captain Lee Ji-won of the Indomitable. I acknowledge your order. However, there are still over 1,000 civilians on this station. If we withdraw now, they will die. Captain Lee, you have already done more than anyone could ask. You have saved thousands of lives, but your ship is critically damaged. If you do not withdraw now, you will die. Your entire crew will die. Is that acceptable to you? Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited. None of them spoke. None of them protested. They all knew what she was going to say. With respect, Admiral, Ji-won said softly. These people did not ask for our help. Their governments have banned us from their coalition. They call us savages and primitives. They would not help us if our positions were reversed. But we are not them. We are humans. And humans do not abandon people who need help, no matter who they are or what they think of us. She took a deep breath. My crew knows the risks. We accept them. We stay until the last civilian is clear. Indomitable out. She cut the channel before Earth Command could respond. The evacuation counter ticked higher. 90%, 92%, 95%. The ship shook violently. More explosions. More hull breaches. The main reactor was failing. Life support was gone in most sections. They were running out of time. 98%. 99%. The engineering officer's voice came through, barely audible over the alarms. Captain, reactor containment at critical levels. We have maybe 30 seconds before 100%, Jiwon smiled. It was a tired, sad smile, but it was genuine. All hands, she said quietly. The evacuation is complete. Every civilian is safe. You all did well. You did so well. It has been my honor to serve with you. The camera view pulled back, showing the Indomitable from a distance. The ship was barely recognizable, torn apart by countless impacts, but it still held position between the raiders and the now empty station. Then the reactor failed. The ship disappeared in a flash of light. The footage ended. The holographic display faded to black. In the assembly hall, there was only silence. The silence in the assembly hall was absolute. Not a single being moved. Not a single voice spoke. Thousands of delegates from across the galaxy sat frozen, staring at the empty space where the holographic display had been. Taehyun stood alone in the center of the chamber. He had not moved since the footage ended. His hands were clasped behind his back, his face calm and composed. But inside his heart pounded. This was the moment. Everything depended on what happened next. The silence stretched on. 30 seconds, a minute. It felt like an eternity. Then someone stood up. It was Ambassador Kira. The Luminar delegate's face was wet with tears. Her entire body trembled as she rose from her seat. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but in that silent hall, everyone heard her clearly. My daughter, she said. My daughter was on that station. She was 7 years old. She had gone with her school class to see the research labs. When the attack came, she was trapped in the eastern section with her teacher and 20 other children. Kira's voice broke. She took a moment to compose herself. I received a message from her teacher that day, Kira continued. She told me that a human Marine found them. Lieutenant Park Minho, he was wounded. His squad was dead, but he carried my daughter through 3 burning corridors to reach an evacuation shuttle. He made sure she was safely aboard before he went back to hold off the raiders. She looked directly at Taehyun, her eyes bright with emotion. My daughter is alive because of that human, because of Captain Jiwon and her crew. They did not know us. We had never spoken to them. Our people had voted to ban them from the coalition. We called them savages. And still, they died to save us. Kara's voice grew stronger. I was wrong. We were all wrong. The savages are not the humans. The savages are us for treating them this way. She sat down slowly. For a long moment, no one else moved. Then another delegate stood. Then another. Then dozens. Then hundreds. A Chithar representative rose, his insect features impossible to read, but his voice carried weight. I was part of the research team on that station. I study quantum mechanics. I am not a warrior. I do not understand combat. But I understand this. Those humans had a choice. They could have fled. They could have saved themselves. Instead, they chose to die so that we might live. The Hive has never encountered such behavior before. We must reconsider our assessment of the human species. A delegate from the peaceful Ventari species stood next, her voice soft but clear. My entire family was on Sanctuary Station. My parents, my siblings, my children, all of them survived because the Indomitable held the line. I do not care what humans did in their past. I care what they did when it mattered. They saved everyone I love, more voices joined in. Some spoke of family members saved. Some spoke of colleagues or friends. Others simply spoke of witnessing true courage for the first time in their lives. General Tharn remained standing, his hand still pressed to his chest in salute. When the other voices quieted, he finally spoke. His rough voice carried across the chamber. I am Draven, he said. My people are warriors. We have fought wars for 10,000 years. We pride ourselves on our strength, our courage, our honor in battle. We have faced enemies across countless worlds and never retreated, never surrendered. He paused, and his scarred face showed something that might have been shame. But I have never seen what I just witnessed, Tharn continued. Those humans knew they would die. They knew the civilians they saved would never thank them. never even know their names. They knew their own governments had banned them from joining us. And still they fought. Still they held the line. Still they gave everything. His voice grew rough with emotion. That is not just courage. That is something higher, something pure. In my language we have a word, Kareth. It means to sacrifice yourself for those who cannot fight, expecting nothing in return. It is the highest honor a warrior can achieve. I have known soldiers who fought their entire lives and never achieved Karath. Those humans achieved it in their first battle. Tharn lowered his hand from his chest and looked directly at High Counselor Vrex. We called them primitives, Tharn said. We called them violent and dangerous. But they showed us something we have forgotten. They showed us what it truly means to be civilized. Any species can fight for themselves. Any species can destroy their enemies, but only the truly civilized will die for strangers. Even Commander Zilth stood up. The Chithar Hivemaster's voice buzzed with unusual emotion. The collective has analyzed the footage, Zilth said. We have calculated the probabilities. The humans had a 97% chance of survival if they had withdrawn immediately. By staying to protect the station, that probability dropped to 0. They chose certain death over probable survival. This does not match our previous models of human behavior. Our assessment was incorrect. Zilth turned to face Taehyun. The Chithar Collective wishes to formally apologize to humanity. We judged you based on incomplete data. We failed to understand that your capacity for violence is matched by your capacity for sacrifice. You are not primitives. You are exceptional. All eyes turned to High Counselor Vrex. The Talvari leader had remained seated throughout everything, his color-changing skin flickering through emotions too complex to read. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Finally, slowly, Vrex stood. He looked old suddenly, ancient and tired. When he spoke, his voice lacked its usual arrogance. I have led this council for 40 cycles, Vrex said quietly. I have witnessed countless debates and made thousands of decisions. I believed myself to be wise. I believed I understood the nature of civilization and barbarism. I believed humans were not ready to join us. He paused, and his skin shifted to colors that Taehyun had learned meant shame and regret. I was wrong, Vrex said. Perhaps I have been wrong for a very long time. I watched that footage. I saw those humans give their lives for people who despise them. For children who would never know their names. For species that had rejected them. He looked at Taehyun with something that might have been respect. Ambassador Taehyun, you told us we would see what humans truly are. You were right. We saw courage. We saw honor. We saw nobility. We saw everything we claim to value in this coalition, demonstrated by a species we refuse to accept. Vrex's voice grew firmer. I cannot vote on this matter. My prejudice has been too strong for too long. I will abstain, but I will say this. Any species capable of what we just witnessed deserves to stand among us. More than that, we need them. We need to learn from them. We need to remember what we have forgotten. The hall erupted into conversation. Delegates talked urgently to each other. Some argued. Some agreed. But the tone had changed. The contempt was gone. The mockery had vanished. In its place was something else. Something that looked like respect. Taehyun finally allowed himself to take a deep breath. He had shown them the truth. He had let Captain Jiwon and her crew speak through their actions. Now all he could do was wait and hope it was enough. Ambassador Kira approached him, moving through the crowd of debating delegates. She stopped in front of him and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you, she said simply, for showing us the truth, for not giving up on us even when we had given up on you. Taehyun took her hand gently. We do not need thanks. We need allies. We need friends. We need a chance to prove that what Captain Jiwon did was not unique, that every human carries that same spirit, that same willingness to help others no matter the cost. Kira smiled through her tears. Then let us give you that chance. Let us finally do what we should have done long ago. Let us welcome humanity home. The debate continued for hours. Delegates argued and discussed and proposed. But slowly, steadily, a consensus began to form. The chamber that had been filled with contempt now buzzed with a different energy. Something had changed. Something fundamental. Taehyun watched it all from his place in the center of the hall. He said nothing more. He did not need to. The footage had spoken louder than any words he could offer. Captain G1 and her crew had made the argument he never could. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, High Counselor Vrex called for order. The chamber fell silent again. The ancient Telvari looked tired but determined. The debate is concluded, Vrex announced. It is time to vote. The question before this assembly is simple. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Coalition? He paused and looked around the chamber. Before we vote, I want to say something. For 50 years, I have argued against this moment. I believed humans were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. I used their history as evidence. I pointed to their wars and conflicts as proof they did not belong among us. His skin shifted through complex patterns of color. But I was looking at the wrong evidence. Vrex continued. Yes, humans have fought wars. Yes, they have made mistakes. But they have also shown something that many of us have lost. They have shown the willingness to sacrifice everything for others. Not for glory, not for reward, simply because it is right. He turned to look directly at Taehyun. I have been unjust to your people, Ambassador Taehyun. I allowed fear and prejudice to cloud my judgment. I cannot undo 50 years of wrong decisions. But I can remove myself from this vote. I will abstain, so that the decision is not tainted by my past mistakes. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. Vrex acknowledged them with a nod, then activated the voting system. Holographic displays lit up throughout the hall, showing each delegation's section. The vote will proceed by species, Vrex said. Each delegation will have 1 minute to register their decision. Let us begin with the Luminar. Ambassador Kira stood immediately. Her voice was clear and strong. The Luminar vote yes. We welcome humanity to the coalition. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid. The least we can do is offer them the respect and friendship they have earned. The display showed the Luminar delegation's vote. Unanimous approval. The Draven Empire. Vrex called next. General Tharn rose, his massive form towering over those around him. The Draven vote yes, he said firmly.
Any warrior who fights like those humans deserves to stand among us.
More than that, they have something to teach us about honor. We would be fools to reject such allies. Another unanimous vote appeared on the display. The voting continued. Species after species cast their decision. The Chithar Collective voted yes. The Venturi voted yes. The Peaceful Quinn voted yes. The Scientific Wrath voted yes. Even species that had been neutral or hostile before now voted to accept humanity. Some delegations abstained, uncertain or still conflicted. But not a single species voted against humanity, not one. The footage had made opposition impossible. Taehyun watched the vote tally climb higher and higher. His heart pounded. 50 years. 50 years of trying, 50 years of rejection and mockery and closed doors. And now, because of Captain G1 and 200 brave souls who had chosen to give everything, it was finally happening. The last species cast their vote. The final tally appeared on the display. In favor, 847 species. Against 0 abstained. 23 the chamber erupted in sound. Not cheering exactly, but something close to it. A wave of approval that swept through the entire assembly. Vrex struck his ceremonial staff against the floor 3 times. The sound echoed through the hall, calling for silence. The vote is concluded, he announced. By overwhelming majority, this council accepts humanity as a full member of the Galactic Coalition, with all rights and privileges therein. Let it be recorded that on this day we corrected a grave injustice. He turned to Taehyun and, for the first time, bowed his head in respect. Welcome, Ambassador Taehyun of Earth. Welcome to the Coalition. May your people bring us the wisdom and courage you have shown today. Taehyun felt his throat tighten with emotion. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was here, all he could think about was the price that had been paid. 200 lives, 200 people who would never see this moment, who would never know that their sacrifice had changed the galaxy. He bowed formally to the assembly. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. On behalf of all humanity, thank you. But I must say this, we do not celebrate today. We mourn. We mourn Captain Lee Ji-won and the crew of the Indomitable. We mourn Lieutenant Park Min-ho and his Marines. We mourn Dr. Yoon Hana and her medical staff. We mourn 200 heroes who gave everything so that others might live. The chamber fell silent again. Every being present understood the weight of those words. They did not die to win us membership in the coalition, Taehyun continued. They died because people needed help. Because it was right. That is who we are as humans. Not perfect, not without flaws, but willing to stand between the innocent and harm, no matter the cost. He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. You have given us a great honor today. We will work to be worthy of it. We will stand with you against threats to peace and justice. We will share our knowledge and our strength, and we will never forget what it cost to get here. Ambassador Kira stepped forward. In her hands, she held a small holographic projector. She activated it, and an image appeared. It showed a young Luminar child with bright, curious eyes. "This is my daughter," Kira said softly. "She is alive because of your people. I have a proposal if the Assembly will hear it." Vrex nodded. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Kira. "I propose," Kira said, "that we honor the crew of the Indomitable, not just with words but with actions. I propose we establish a new protocol, the Indomitable Doctrine. When any coalition member responds to a distress call, they will follow the example set by Captain Jiwan and her crew. No species will be left behind. No life will be considered less valuable than another. We will help because it is right, not because it is profitable or convenient." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Delegates rose to their feet, voicing approval. The vote was called and passed within minutes. Unanimous General Tharn stood next. "I have another proposal. The Galactic Medal of Valor is our highest military honor. It has been awarded only 17 times in the history of the Coalition. I propose we award it posthumously to every member of the Indomitable crew. They earned it with their blood and their sacrifice." Another unanimous vote. The medals would be crafted and presented to Earth within the month. Commander Zilth rose last. "The Chithar Collective proposes to fund the construction of a new research station at Kepler 442b. We propose naming it Indomitable Station. Let it stand as a reminder of what was lost and what was saved. Let it be a place where all species can work together in peace." The vote passed. The station would be built. A memorial would be created. The names of the fallen would be etched in light, visible from across the system. Tae-hyun felt tears running down his face. He did not try to hide them. Around the chamber, many other beings wept as well. They had come to this assembly expecting another routine rejection. Instead, they had witnessed something that would change the galaxy forever. Vrex struck his staff again, calling the assembly to order one final time. "This session is concluded," he said. "But let it be known that today is not an ending. It is a beginning. We welcome humanity not just as members but as teachers. They have shown us what we had forgotten. They have reminded us what it means to be truly civilized." He looked at Tae-hyun one last time. "Go home, Ambassador. Tell your people they are no longer alone. Tell them the galaxy has finally opened its arms to embrace them, and tell them that we will never forget the price they paid to teach us this lesson." Tae-hyun bowed deeply. When he straightened, he wore a small smile through his tears. "I will tell them," he said, "and I will tell them something else. I will tell them that Captain Jiwan and her crew would be proud, not because we won membership in the Coalition, but because we showed the galaxy who we really are. That is the greatest victory of all." The assembly rose as one, a gesture of respect that was rarely given. As Tae-hyun walked from the chamber, thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds watched him go. The human who had stood alone was alone no more. Humanity had finally come home.